Hi there, my name's Craig Pheiffer. I'm the Chief Investment Strategist at Stockbrokers and Portfolio Management. Today we had the national budget reading by the Finance Minister, and it's important for two key reasons. We like to look at it from a macro point of view, how good is it for the country as a whole, and then we also all have a personal interest in the outcome of the budget, what's happening to the personal income taxes, what's happening to those so-called sin taxes, and today was no exception. A lot of focus on the budget today, and it was billed as a radical economic transformation for inclusive growth. That was sort of the title of the budget. And if we look at the headline, at the macro level, looking at the projections from the Finance Minister, he was looking for growth in the economy this year of 1.3% up to 2% next year. That's pretty much in line with what the market's thinking, maybe a little bullish, but fairly in line. And then his outlook for inflation was for an average of around 6.4 this year and about 5.7 next year, which is also pretty much in line with what the market and the Reserve Bank are looking for at the moment. So no great shakes there in terms of the macro projections. If we look then at the next line, at the actual budget itself, looking at the revenues that are coming in or expected to come in versus the expenditures that are planned, I think it's been key, or it is key, that we've been watching what happens to that budget deficit. What is the difference between what we're getting in and what we're spending? It's a key thing that the ratings agencies are looking at. And when we had the medium-term budget policy statement in October last year, when the Finance Minister revised those numbers, he revised the outlook for the budget deficit to be 3.4% of GDP for this year that's just gone past, and 3.1% for the year ahead. Now, those two numbers, we were already sensitized to a bit of fiscal slippage there. They were worse than what he had intimated in the February budget last year. But we kept to those numbers today. So that was a good thing, a good mark that the ratings agencies will give us there. But then there was a bit more fiscal slippage, as they say. The budget deficits for the next 2 years, although still shrinking, getting smaller, they were actually a little higher than the October medium-term budget policy statement numbers. So maybe we'll be forgiven for a little bit of fiscal slippage there. We get to about 2.8% in the following year and 2.6% in the third year. So positive, heading in the right direction. But the deficit this year will be our 10th budget deficit consecutively. So balancing the books was what it was all about today. So to get that extra revenue, the Finance Minister was looking to up taxes across the board. Everybody speculated about where and when this was all going to happen. And the surprise on the personal income tax front was the introduction of a new tax rate. We didn't increase the top marginal rates to 45%, but a new tax rate was a new tax bracket was added at the top end at 45%, kicking in at a threshold of 1.5 million rand. There was some adjustment for bracket creep. We all get increases over the course of the year, and that can push you into a higher tax bracket. But just to account for inflation, we normally get a little bit of an increase in the thresholds on each of the brackets. We got that this year, very modest, so not making a very big difference. By staying quite restrained, the Finance Minister earned a good 16 billion extra of revenue just by being less generous with those bracket increases. So we've got increases across the board there, and that new 45% tax rate kicking in from 1.5 million. The market as well was looking for any other snippets of tax news around VAT. VAT was left unchanged. CGT, that inclusion rate had been increased last year, so this year there wasn't any increase to that, so CGT was left alone. But what wasn't left alone was dividend withholdings tax. And that was increased from 15% to 20%, and that happens immediately from today. So any companies declaring dividends, that's the tax rate that will be applicable for local individuals on their dividends earned. So that was a bit of a surprise. The regular news around sin taxes, the excise duties around cigarettes, alcohol, those generally came in with 9% increases. There were no holy cows, nothing was left alone this year, so everything up about 9% on average. We saw increases in the fuel levy, another 30 cents. We did get a big increase last year, so maybe we weren't expecting as big an increase this year, but we got 30 cents. And then the road accident fund, that was an increase last year, that goes up by 9 cents this time around. So an extra 39 cents. The total fuel levy component of the petrol price at the pump is about 36% of that total price when this increase is put through in April. Other taxes that we, or other bits of news on the tax front, we did get an increase in the tax-free savings annual allowance. So that was set at 30,000 Rand per annum when that was introduced, and that goes up to 33,000 Rand. So I think that's very good news for savers and investors, and you can get in an extra 3,000 Rand per annum. Once, if you think about the compounding effect of that over time, it will be very beneficial to you in the longer term. There was question marks around the carbon tax and the tax on sugary drinks. All we got news on that front was that it's still in the works. There's still lots to be discussed and debated, and we'll hear more on those two taxes later in the year. If I look at, there were other bits and pieces within the budget, a lot more detail to be gone through. But I think overall, if we have a look at the market reaction, and I followed the bond market, followed the currency market, followed the equity market, and overall, at the end of the day, very little move one could attribute to the budget. The Rand finished fairly flat on the day. It did have a little spike up from 13.11 to 13.16 or so, finishing around 13.11. So no great shakes there. And the bond market yields did drift up a little, but also finished back down where they started. The equity market was down on the day, but we were pretty much down from around 10 o'clock this morning. So I think the finance minister, he got a lot of applause at the end of his speech, as he normally does. Let's hope it was all genuine, and he does have the support of all of the other parliamentarians. But overall, we talk about the finance minister trying to do a balancing act. I think he achieved that this year. But the real thrust and the real message of this budget was about trying to be more inclusive. He did highlight this was a progressive budget and tax, and that those who earn more should pay more, and try and redistribute that income and create a better economic life for everybody within South Africa. Thank you.